Every fish tank and every fish room has a story, a history per se. Right now we're looking at the oldest tank in my fish room. We had the privilege of going on King and Queen Cichlid's video, talking about your favorite cichlid. And this tank did garner some questions and attention in the chat. So let's go ahead and dive a little bit further in my 245 gallon South American cichlid tank.
Let's go.
Hello there, fellow fish keepers. Mike here with the Fish Tank Barn. I'd like to welcome you back to another video. I definitely want to thank Scott and Liz from King and Queen Cichlids for allowing us to show us what our favorite cichlid was here in the Fish Tank Barn. So that being said, today we are going to take a look at my oldest tank. This tank was purchased back in 2008. So I'm going to go ahead and roll a little montage here on where this tank's been, and I'll go ahead and see you on the flip side. So as you can see, this tank has definitely been through quite a bit with us. It's moved houses, been upstairs, downstairs, in barns. So a couple of months ago, I did decide to transition that tank over to a freshwater tank, putting in my South and Central American cichlids in there. This tank is still a work in progress, especially from the filtration side. But let's go ahead here and I'm gonna give you a tour of all of the mechanical aspects of it, how it runs, and of course, go ahead and talk to you guys about the stocking list and the fish. So let's go ahead and get in the barn and get going. All right, let's go ahead here and take a quick overview of the tank. Well, you can see that this tank is aquascaped with driftwood, and then also has a sandy substrate. All right, let's go ahead and take a look here at the filtration. First filter we're going to look at here is a Big Lee's box filter. Basically, you really use this for water polishing. It does a pretty good job in here. The tank, as you can see, is pretty clear. So also from a filtration perspective, we are running the Emperor 450 back here. This is definitely a pretty good workhorse for this tank on this side. So as we go to the other side of the tank here, we can see the AquaClear 70, definitely pumping out some water as well. So both of these hang-on back filters are definitely the workhorses for the filtration of the tank. We do have some future plans, as you can see over here. This tank is plumbed for an overflow, so we are going to definitely put a sump on this in the near future, just to keep fish from escaping, or we're going to actually just fill this with bio balls, so there's kind of a trickle effect as the water is going down to the sump. So looking at the lighting here, this tank is lit by two saltwater Aquaneat lights. Even though these lights do have a little bit of a bluer hue to them, I've not really seen a whole lot of algae growing in the tank itself. Another aspect of this tank is water flow. To increase the water flow in this tank, I have added this J-Bow wave maker. I do have this from my saltwater days, but definitely a really cool thing. Do set this up just as a straight flow. Don't really set it on any sort of pulse mode or anything like that. But I have found this to work pretty well with keeping the water moving. Make sure we have a good nutrient export here in the system. So let's go ahead here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the fish and the stocking that is in here. Maybe some future plans as well. So let's go ahead and start talking about some fish. All right, the first fish we're going to talk about here is my red shoulder severums. I did get a pair of these from Pleco Paradise back in November of 2018. So these specimens are wild caught from the Rio Nene River in Peru. I would generally consider these the showpiece fish of this tank. Through my observations yet, I've not really been able to determine who the tank boss is in this tank. They all seem to get along, and they're generally fairly peaceful fish. But the red shoulder severums are definitely one of the contenders for sure. Care level for this fish, they do get pretty large. They can be seen up to about 10 inches long. From what I've seen, they've taken a variety of different foods, from meaty foods to pellets, flakes, etc. I generally do feed them a more vegetable-based diet to avoid a hole in the head. Temperature range, they seem to be your typical tropical temperatures, generally around 78 degrees. Even though they come from more acidic water, they do seem to not mind the harder water. pH around here runs from about 7.8 to 8. We do have about 150 hardness or so, so definitely some pretty hard water here, and they seem to be doing just fine. Tank size, I would not put one in anything smaller than a 75, just due to their size. They both get long and tall, so it's definitely you want a tall tank as well as a long tank to give them enough swimming space and enough room. These guys I would consider gentle giants. You know, they don't really bother anything. They will hold their own if needed, but generally do not go ahead and start the fight themselves. So really a nice, peaceful South American cichlid, one that has a lot of color, a lot of different color forms, and one that's not too aggressive, not really too much of a tank boss or a tank bully. The next species I want to cover is the Geophagus altifrons. These fish I've had for quite a while as well. I did pick them up locally at a local pet store. I believe it was back in 2018 as well. I did pick these guys up as juveniles. The Geophagus altifrons is generally found near the Amazon River basin. This fish will reach about 8 to 9 inches long, and it will require the same tropical temperatures as your Severums do. Just like the Severums, I am running this in the same pH water, and they don't seem to be having any issues. One definite requirement for these fish is a sandy substrate. They have the nickname of Earth Eater, so what they'll do is a lot of times to feed is they'll just dig into the substrate in the wild looking for any sort of little crustaceans or anything like that to graze on. These fish eat the same as anything else. They'll eat a variety of meaty foods as well as pellet foods, vegetable-based foods, etc. Temperament-wise, these guys are very similar to the Severums. They won't start the fight, but they will hold their own if needed. Generally a pretty peaceful aquarium fish as well. There are some evidence that some people keeping these with stingrays and really not having any issues with them. So definitely another real peaceful fish to add to your collection. Alright, the next fish I want to talk about here is the Aquarium Tour, also known as the Geophagus heckelii. It's a cousin to the Geophagus altifrons that we just talked about a minute ago. However, it does swim a little bit more mid-water. Care requirements and everything else are pretty similar. Kind of the interesting story about how I got these fish is I did win them at Dan's Fish during one of his Wednesday live streams. So it's definitely a fish I'm excited to see grow out and to achieve its adult colors. I've had them probably about 6 months or so now. They've at least doubled in size, but looking forward to some greater things to come from these guys. The next fish we're going to talk about is a fish whose status of staying in this aquarium is kind of uncertain. That's the convict cichlid. So this is probably one of the easiest cichlids to keep in the cichlid hobby. These guys actually do come from Central America, but they are known to be prolific breeders and to be fairly aggressive. There is I believe it's the male that's in here from a spawning pair that I had at one point, as well as one fry that I missed when I was selling the group off. So these guys are hanging out in here, not causing too much trouble at the moment, but I am prepared to move them if I had to. But we are kind of just seeing how they turn out for now. But, convict cichlids, I think we all kind of know that they're generally can be fairly aggressive, especially in times when they're breeding, as well as their very prolific nature. I mean, I would honestly say they're some of the best parents in the aquarium hobby, but definitely a fish that we're going to be keeping an eye on. All right, the next fish we're going to come to is the latest addition to this tank. So I did move these over from a 125-gallon tank that I was transitioning before. These are the green dragon plecos. I did pick these up at my local aquarium club about a year ago. I have seen some spawning behavior and seeing these guys spawn in some 1-inch PVC. These fish have only been in here a couple days, but they are out and eating. So I do want to provide these guys with some spawning caves. So I probably will put some 1-inch PVC pieces in here because that seems to be what they like. But this is another fish that's a pretty good complement for any South American tank. They're pretty peaceful. They don't get too big. Generally wood eaters, and then they just kind of hang out and do their thing. So definitely any of the bristlenose species plecos are a good addition to any South American tank. Alright, the next fish we're going to talk about here is my Thoricles maculipennis. This fish is closely related to the firemouth cichlid. This fish hails from central Mexico. Gets about 7 inches long. One of the interesting things about this fish is it does come from some harder water than the other Central and South American cichlids that are in this tank. But this fish is definitely one I'm pretty excited about. The adult males get absolutely stunning, turn into an absolutely beautiful fish. This is one fish I may end up moving to a separate tank eventually, just depending on how things work out, but it is definitely a fish I am pretty excited about. Alright, let's now talk about my Mesoheros atromaculatus. This is a member of the Feste group, hailing from Colombia and getting about 9 inches long. I did pick this fish up at the Big Fish deal. At one point there was a pair, but unfortunately I did lose one of them. So definitely this is a fish I am keeping an eye on. Yeah, I am pretty curious to see over time how this fish grows and develops. Hope you guys enjoyed the tour of my 245-gallon South American tank. Like I said, this tank has had a really long and storied history, but definitely enjoy its new history now as a freshwater tank. So with that being said, go ahead and check out the videos at the end. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscription button, ding the notification bell, and as always, stay fishy, keep on breeding. We'll catch you guys in the next video.